Alrighty, how's it going, everyone? This is a build along with me, Tellous, or Matt, whatever you want to call me. The title of this build along is See How Experts Prompt Meta AI. So, what I'm going to do is basically show you how I would go about prompting for things in the desktop editor GenAI tools, but also in Visual Studio Code. So, you're going to learn some ways that you can basically speed up your development process. And there'll be different styles, just like our last, the last call that I did around Gen AI. Showed you some different ways you can ask for things from the AI. And specifically, the things I'll be touching during this demo are triggers, persistent variable, audio, sound effects, mesh textures, placeholder graphics, and a little bit of animation. So that's going to be my goal as I'm prompting the agent. So for the skills matrix, this is covering scripting, hardcore scripting today. So if you're really into that, you're in the right place. Or if you want to learn, you're also in the right place. So just some housekeeping. This session is recorded. Keep yourself muted, raise your hands if you have questions. And, at the end of this, fill out the feedback survey because it helps us keep making these build alongs or Q&As, all these office hours and workshops much better. So super appreciate that feedback at the end of it. Alrighty, so this is an AI focused talk. So there's a sort of new way you need to think about the process of building in Horizon Worlds. Here are some 3 points that are just like, for me, they resonate a lot, but, as you're learning the tool, just keep them in mind. Practice is going to help you, understand these a lot better. But that is, embracing uncertainty rather than demanding perfection. So just, know that it's not always going to be exactly what you expect, uh, and that you'll get there through iteration. You'll get to a version where you can maybe hop in and sort of take over. So it is important to still be learning how the Horizon systems are coded and all that. So, second point, guide rather than command these systems. So, yep, that's, remember that when talking to the AI, it's more conversational, more back and forth than you probably expect. In code, you often do something and you're like, okay, it should just do the thing and work. But um, in this case, we're asking something else to build that code. So sometimes that thing needs clarifying questions or it just doesn't have enough context to do exactly what it needs. So by giving it context, you're guiding it by using natural language and just, having longer conversations with it. You are helping it get to where it needs to be. And then finally, think like a director, not just an engineer. That's sort of wrapping those two other points together. Um, think about it like you're a conductor also, right? Yeah, everybody's, going to be playing their role in the orchestra and you're just, keeping the beat, making sure everybody knows where to go. In this case, everybody are AIs. So, key isn't what tools you use, but how you approach them. So, let's keep those in mind. Here's some more points for that Gen AI mindset. The 5 Ps here, we've got partnership, treat AI as a collaborator, not just a tool. Patience, accept 50% control and be willing to iterate, refine prompts, and guide the process. Purpose driven, start with clear goals, know what you want before asking. Proof checking, verify before implementing, test the code, examine assets, and evaluate all the AI suggestions critically. And playfulness, experiment freely, try unexpected approaches to discover new possibilities. So moral of the story, be open-minded, have fun. Let's get to it then. So one more point here. Just some more concepts around just kind of wrapping those last points, those last slides into sort of TLDR here is, you know, documentation is always going to be helpful. So always reading more about what you can do with AI or in the Horizon systems. That's always the best way to continue learning about the tools and Horizon in general, right? Practice, once again, GenAI mindset, we went over those. And then last but not least, don't be afraid to ask for help. That's what this call is for. You know, you're going to see me work through how I would prompt it. I'm going to move rather quickly because I want to touch on all these things that I sort of promised on that first slide. But at the end of the day, what I want to really show you is that things are possible very quickly. So that's what I want to open everybody's mind to is as I'm working through these, this is really to show you what all is available. If you have particular things that you want to know about, get in the forums, ask for that, get in the chat, keep it active. Let's get going, right? Let's figure all this stuff out. So what's that going to be like, right? So what do we need? If you don't have it already, the world's desktop editor, get that downloaded. It's free. Visual Studio Code, also free. GitHub account, also free. GitHub Copilot extension, also free. And best free resource out there, I'm not biased at all, maybe a little bit biased, is the last point here, World Snippets. This is a GitHub repository that I've created with over 100 snippets of logic that you can start to read and understand and see how things are done at like really small stripped down ways. So I'm going to copy that and share that link in the chat here. If anybody wants to get that bookmarked, that is a fantastic resource and I will be using it during this demo. So for the GitHub portion and the Visual Studio Code, I'm going to assume you've already set that up. Seeing Blue did a session previous to this where he walked through setting that up. Like disclaimer here, I have the paid version of GitHub Copilot, which is $20 a month. And that just gives me access to some other models as well as removing the limits of how many times I can prompt it or use the OpenAI's GPT 4.1 model. It's basically unlimited. And then the other models do have limits, but they're much higher than the free version. If that's, if you're interested in that, then you can always look into that. But I'm not going to go into the details of setting that up. I will just demo how it works once you have it. Once again, I want to reemphasize the free version does work the exact same way that I'm going to demo now. I won't show the portions that are premium since, that's less accessible. Moving on, let's start building. So let's get the desktop editor open. I have it open already, and I have a new blank world. I gave it a name. In this world, what I want to do is write a prompt that will basically build a whole game start to finish, or at least give me a game that has like a start, a middle, and an end, and that it can restart. So how are we going to do that? Well, what I like to do is create a game script. So we'll get that created, and I will add an empty object, and I'll call that game. From here, I'll attach the game script. Recreate flip it. Oh my goodness. That's a throwback right there. I think I saw a notification too coming from you. I gotta go check what you sent me there. But I won't be recreating flip it since I'm gonna kind of focus on a sort of like mobile game approach, right? So for this, I'm thinking I'll use the avatars, basic locomotion, and then entering triggers. Mind you, you can go very advanced with what you prompt it, but let's start there just to kind of get a glimpse of what's going on here. So I'm going to open up my scripts, and that should open. Let me close that. Okay, that should open the script that I just created. When I tap the game script, it opens the script that I just created. Just to get a quick glimpse of our file system or our files and folders and whatnot over here. We've got our game ready to go, ready to be coded. So this is the setup of setting up my environment for being able to prompt it for really advanced like Horizon based things. So I'm going to go over to that snippets repository and I'll click this zip folder here. It says download the zip folder. So I can click that link and it will just download that folder of all the snippets. When I open it up, I can go into the folder. Here's that snippets folder. I'm going to copy that. Now I'll right click my files over here and say reveal in File Explorer, which basically just opens the folder that I have open here. It opens it in my, Windows File Explorer, right? So I copied over my my snippets. I could also just drag and drop, but if I copied, I can paste it or I can drag and drop. So here I'm going to drag and drop it. You'll see now the folder has snippets in it. And over here, we see snippets listed as our folder that's in our project now. Now, I want to pause here for a second and just demonstrate something. Normally, when you add scripts to your world, right, you kind of expect them to show up in this list, right? Well, that's a really nice feature at the moment that exists, which is if you have a folder, it doesn't get into your project. So it doesn't pollute your project with all those snippets. You're not going to have 100 snippets here. So that's to say, I want to re-emphasize, use this folder, as a way to stop those 100 snippets from getting into your project and then being a headache to remove. That being said, too, if you're doing this for the first time, duplicate your world while you're practicing getting it set up so you don't accidentally do something like that is like very hard to undo. And always create backups of your world, right? So you can always use a backup. So here we have our snippets folder that's got all those snippets that I've created with the help of AI to do many, many things in Horizon Worlds, right? So let's see if I can move this thing. Maybe not. It's okay. I'll scooch this down. I just want to get this little icon here. So this right here, this is our GitHub Copilot, right? And so if you don't have that installed, you can click this extensions icon here on the left side of the Visual Studio Code, get it installed, get logged in, and you'll have this this view right here. So what is great about this view is this is where you prompt for code, right? And so naturally you might, start writing here, make it do this, that, and the other. Well, in this case, we have ask turned on. So recently, I believe it was either last week or the week before, the free mode now has access to this drop down here, which allows you to pick agent. And what agent, I guess the quick and easy way to describe an agent is that it's going to take your prompt and it's going to break it down into sort of smaller tasks that it can perform and do it in like a sequence that it it can follow the the following prompt tends to like relate to the previous like action, or sorry, let me say that a different way. The action relates often to the previous action. So it like chains events together. Like let's say you ask it for code. Cool, it generates code. Then it goes, oh, I see an error. Let me go fix that error. And then it's like, if you want me to do other things, then go ahead and ask or whatever. And so then it has this like chain of thought, I guess is one way to think about it. So whereas ask is just question and answer, right? Like basically it's like, hey, how do I do this thing? Here's your answer. You could push a button to like implement it, but the agents will actually go and change the code, similar to edit, where edit takes like one file or it tries to kind of like do it in one go, where agent breaks it up and takes its time with it. So note that taking its time will affect the rate limit that you're using, right? So that's to say you need to be mindful of how it's operating, and it'll be telling you what it's doing, And if it's stuck in a loop, you need to stop it so that it doesn't eat up all your available prompts for for the hour. So in this case, we have game here. And what I want to do is in snippets, I actually have some sample components here. These samples are basically just blank versions of the code. I want to take this one and I'll explain why here in just a second. So let's rename this to game. I recently did this where the samples and basically all the snippets have they are using the named imports as opposed to the alias imports that you saw. I'm going to undo so you can see the alias. So that's aliasing, right? So you're going to always see hz dot, right? hz dot component, hz dot component. So instead of doing that, I'm using the new examples that you see when you create a new script through the attach script button, which is named imports. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is pre-start. I've added pre-start to all these snippets. So hopefully that helps with anybody who was looking to implement those. Okay, so saving this file and let's get prompting. So let's see. I want to do something quite simple. So like I want a game that starts, like I can start it, and when it's starting, it has a countdown. When the game starts, a wall hides or it just disappears and becomes uncollidable. Uh, and then there are like coins around the map that I can pick up. And every time I pick up a coin, it will add a point to my score. Once all the coins are picked up, the game is over, right? And then I want it to show my score on the screen and restart, right? So to do that in this version, I can just basically everything I said, I'll just list it out. So one thing I do want to add is making sure that it's using the snippets and also the APIs like Horizon Core to do the implementation, right? To check its work. Before I write that prompt, let's go over to the scripts here. In the settings, we want to turn on UI. I see you, Cray. uh, so great. So now in my types, I have Horizon UI because I enabled it in the settings over there, right? So, okay, let's say I want the player to walk. Oh, wait. Before we get too far, I want to start by telling it it's what it should be looking at. So let's say use the snippets folder to verify how to implement the following logic. Snippets folder and types folder. And I'll put in parentheses like Horizon Core and Horizon UI to verify how to implement the following logic. So I want the player to press a start button on the screen when the game starts. Make a wall uncollidable. And every time the player touches a coin trigger, it should save points for that player. I don't know. When all coins are collected, the game should end and restart. Well, here, let's say should end. When the game ends, show a list of players and the coin and the amount of coins they collected. Then after 10 seconds, respawn them all to the starting spawn point. Reset the game. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. So here I want to say let's add one more bit here. So when I press the start button on the screen, count down when the player presses start button, count down 10 seconds. Okay. So here's a bunch of stuff. It doesn't have to be perfect, especially when you're just trying out mechanics. You just want to see what feels fun. I'm going to submit that, and I'm going to keep an eye on it for just a second. Okay. So it says searching code base. Basically, it's going to look at the spots where I told it to, those folders. You can see that it's starting to pick up on some of the folders and files. Enter. Nice, nice. Cool. So it's going to do its thing. Sometimes you might get this prompt where it's saying, hey, this has been going for a while. You sure you want to keep going? Especially for the free accounts. This is a really important since it's kind of protecting you from overusing the limits. In this case, I'm not going to hit the limits, both for two reasons. One, it's not a whole lot that it's doing at the moment. And I have the paid version, so that helps a lot. So let's see. Next, it says you have all the building blocks and for logic based on snippets. Okay. So here it's sort of telling us what it's going to do. Next, I'll scaffold the major logic into your game, orchestrate these steps, referencing the patterns from the snippets. As this is going, you can already kind of get started reading on it, like reading the thing that it's trying to do. I see a binding there. So here are the key corrections. Thanks for your implementation. I'll now update the game to use this pattern to fix the error. So basically what it's saying is it found some issues as it was building it out. That's what the agent is best at, is sort of checking its work. As a quick skim, I can look at these. I can look at these buttons or look at these functions that are being created. So top level, we have show start button on start button pressed, start countdown, start game, on coin collected, end game, reset game. So as far as like what I asked for, that's not too bad, right? In the spirit of vibe coding, the thing I like to do is just press keep and read from there, right? Because I don't like the big green wall. It makes it a little hard to read, at least for me it does. But if you wanted to, you could just keep editing while it's green and not accept it until you got it the way you want it. I like to just keep it and kind of go from there. So as it stands, this game is not going to run, right? We can try it. We can attempt to put it in and see what happens, right? So it wants a wall and it wants a spawn point. So let's add our wall. It's our wall. And our spawn point is the spawn point, right? We look at console, let's clear and just click world sim on. Okay, so there's like a pop-up that, that appeared randomly. No error, so that's not terrible. But let's see. Okay. So main things to think about is we know that a UI, is just a separate it's a separate gizmo, right? I feel like especially in the prototyping phase, when working with AI, the best thing you could do is keep the scripts all in one file. That's highly want to emphasize that it's during prototyping. For published game, you're going to want to separate these components out. Um, so here, what I might consider asking for, here I'm putting 2 forward slashes to get a comment. Here I'm going to say maybe I have a player UI. Um, this should show how many coins I collected. And the, let's see, results UI should show how many players each collected when the game ends. And what else? Start game UI. It shows the start game button. Great. So here I can say, oh, I could right click this and in Copilot, I can say add selection to chat. So here you can see now I've given it some context, right? Now I'm saying like between these lines, I have some stuff that might be important to this next prompt that I'm going to give you. So I'll say something as simple as like implement this. What's great about the agent and the chat history is that it will reference that stuff sometimes. Sometimes it kind of forgets and you got to create a new chat and retell it to care about the files and folders. Uh, let's see what happened in this case. But I think I went a little too simple on the request here. So that, you can, like I said, play with it, have fun as you're trying different things. Sometimes implement this will work. Specifically, I'm going to say implement these uh, new UI things. So it should read those comments. No. So this is one of those cases where, let's see, fine. Features are now implemented in your game. Okay. So let's do this. Let's guide it a little more. So remember I said in those snippets, I have some samples here. I'll grab a couple UI, oh, not local, server UI components. Let's get this imported. So there's one import. Add that import there. Add. All right, let's change these names a bit. Results UI. And start game UI. Okay, so now let's tell it implement these new UI components. Okay. It's being very quick today, which is pretty cool. I like that. Something to note was like, if it's like kind of middle of the day where everybody's working, sometimes the servers are, a little sluggish, but in this case, it's working really well. All right. So we have some UI. When we're vibe coding, we just kind of trust it and move along. So move quickly. So let's see what that looks like. We're going to drag out some custom UIs. Attach player, the name, player UI. results UI. And what's the last one? Start game UI. Let's remove player UI from there. Start game UI results. Add here. Attach results UI. Okay. So start game UI is a button. So we'll want that to be screen overlay, interactive blocking. Could be non-blocking, but I'll set it to blocking for now. Results UI is no interaction, and player UI is no interaction, since those are just displaying stuff on the screen. So let's see just how it works off the bat. Okay, we got our start game button, got our coins collected, and I think that's the results in the back. It's not exactly how we want it to look, but we can get to that later. Okay. So iteration is key here, right? We want to see what we've got and move from there. So right now, let's see what happens. We can press the start button and nothing's going to happen, right? So let's look at the start game or the start game button. Yeah. Here we have a unpressable this a pressable with an on click that says this not on start, on start. So we know from just like that's just not going to work. Ideally, or one way we could do it is using events. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to use a static instance. So how I'll set that up is, since these are all in the same file, I can just create a static instance field here and create a constructor that have that issue right now where it undoes the code that I just wrote. So bear with me whenever you see it kind of flicker like that. All right. So game instance is this. So this is how, you can expose it so you don't have to use events. You can just use this instance. This only works well like this when you have a single instance of this component, right? If it's a component like that you're going to have multiple of in this scene, then this is not a good use case for this. So here we're saying on click. So let's remove this function here, set on start, and this one here. Those are just like things that were hallucinated by the AI. So remember, it can get us 50% there, and then the rest of the way we have to do ourselves sometimes. So in this case, we're going to say game.instance, start button press. That works. Here it's asking for a player. I can get that from our onClick. So let's see. That should start the countdown when I press the button, right? So let's save, re-enter, see what we're getting. Give it a sec to compile. Okay, so we got game starts in 97, right? So what else do we need to do there now that we have a UI is, if we don't want the blocking to still be occurring, then we need to hide the UI. So I could say, to speed this up a little, I can ask for add a prop definition for start UI. When I press the start button, set its visible to false. So that one's one of those tasks that it's like you can weigh your options here. It's like maybe it might be faster to type, but sometimes the AI is much faster, right? So we got our prop definition here. We've got it setting it to false, setting its visibility to false there. And, we can run with that, right? Those are some simple things that will work. So let's go here, game, we need start UI there. If I press, now it goes away, right? And I get my controls back. That's awesome. All right, so let's see what happens with the wall. Okay, so I think it went non-collidable, but I didn't tell it to become invisible too. So when the game starts, also make the wall invisible. This is definitely one that I could write faster than the AI could do. But this is more of an example of like either, sometimes your brain kind of slows down or you really don't know how to do it. Then just ask like this, right? When the game starts, make it invisible. Great, cool. It did it. It's making it invisible. It even added a comment just to make it even easier to see. Let's change the timer from 10 seconds to less than that. Let's do like 3 seconds. Oh, let's wait for it to compile. Did it compile? Let's try that again, maybe. 3, 2, 1. Okay, the wall goes away. I can walk through. Great. So now we're missing the coins, right? So let's drop a few coins in here. Let's go to our asset library, look for coins. Here's one. Move it down onto the scene. All right. Zero out its rotation just to keep it nice and straight. Turn its collidability off, as you should with most meshes. Just get in the habit of turning off the mesh colliders and build your own colliders. Oh, I don't actually need a collider though, because I'm using a trigger. Well, let's parent that here onto the coin. Great, the coin now has a trigger as a child. Zero that out, shrink it down a bit. Great. Okay, so something to note is I didn't review how it gets the coins. So I have to use my like Horizon knowledge to do that, right? Well, in this case, I know I can like tag it, right? I could say coin. Then on the game, I could just find for all the like I can just find all the coins, right? So here, let's do like 3 coins for now. 3 coins, they each have the tag coin on them, right? Okay, and then something to note, right, is here we have the trigger is a child of our coin. So that's important for when we go to, create the event listener or double check what the AI generated as the event listener for the trigger. So let's take a look at how it even knows there's coins. So here it did this, which doesn't work, right? Horizon Core does define this, but this does not work in practice. So we'll remove that and we'll say, let's get the coins by the coin tag and add a on trigger enter on player enter trigger event. So the player can earn coins when they touch the trigger. All right, run it. See what we get. Okay. Sometimes you'll see it kind of loop around this like when it's dealing with arrays. That's like I don't know what causes that, but that's something I often see. So, in the free tier, it's something to keep an eye on as it's you'll see it keep looping, right? It's trying to like solve problems, right? As as it's making changes. And you can always click on these lines here to see exactly what it tried to change. Let's review what it made. So here it's saying find all entities with the tag coin. Perfect. Store the coins for use in in-game logic. This is a funky one. Let's see. This dot any coins, right? So that is one that, I can sort of fill the blanks there. Next part is attach the trigger event to each coin using the code connect code block event. We know that we added a bit of complexity by making it the child of the coins, right? So that's just something that, like, if you don't like, sometimes it's better to just give the AI like a version of it, right? So here we're making it assume that coin here is the thing that is the trigger gizmo. Uh, but that's just so that it can like kind of give us the code and we can do the rest. If you're feeling adventurous, always, you could try saying like, hey, the trigger is a child of the coin, so make sure you're using dot children and so on and so forth. So in this case, I'm gonna put that in myself. So here, let's fix this coins issue here. So this dot coins, right, does not exist. Here's a great thing about GitHub Copilot. It's paying attention to what you're doing. So in this case, it's giving me an array. It's not perfect. In this case, I need to make it an entity array. Oh, there goes switching me back. And yeah, so here is the coins that are being filled out. And here is, or in fact, we can actually condense this down to this, which is going to break this line here, but we can fix that. So, oh, okay. So now we're storing the coins that were tagged coin into the coins array. Then we're looping through that array and connecting a on player enter trigger. Well, we know that that actually has to be children.get, and then we'll say the first one, right? You might want to write some more like robust checks for this, right? If you forget to wire it up, or just like one of your coins is not built this way, you don't want it to break here. But in our case, for the demo, we know it's there, so we'll just put it there. Great. So basically it's saying when the trigger's entered, it'll call this coin collected function. This right here, we know that does not, or actually it might work, but I don't like that pattern. I like to put the curly braces when it's a function definition, like, or when it's a function call like that, so that I can make sure that it's like not going to accidentally call. I should probably read into that and see if what it's going to do if I didn't have the curly braces. But basically it's saying when this happens, call this function, which then calls this function inside of it. Okay, let's see what the function does. We've got some errors, and we could say fix the errors. As we see like 3 lines there, so maybe it's a little faster to fix. Let's see what it does. Okay, so there you can see it changed this to entities or entity. Here it's using the field variable. Great. And it just left us with 1 error, which we can do ourselves. So coins right here. Let's get rid of that. All right. So it looks like we have, this is on start game. What it's trying to do is set them all visible again. Okay. So we don't need to reconnect the event. All right. Let's see, how are we looking? Go back in here, start the game. Okay. So we didn't need to wire the coins because they are being found based on their tag. So the hope is that when I touch it, it will score a coin for me. Well, we'll see what it does. Even if it doesn't, we'll have it do it. Okay, so it disappeared as if I collected it, but it didn't give me a coin in my coins collected. So let's find out why that happened. All right, player scores, or sorry, wrong function. In here, collected coins, add player scores. Okay, so we have this player scores that is being updated, but the binding of our player UI is not being updated. Okay. So once again, we could do this through events, but since we know we just have one player UI, we're going to tell it to do it. Well, we're going to update the binding per player, right? So I'm actually going to move this binding out of the class. Okay. And we'll define it as a constant. Okay. So good. Okay. So now what I want to do is say update the score binding when a player grabs the coin. Okay. So this, what you see it saying now, summarizing conversation history, is like basically you can get to like a limit to where the context window, meaning everything that you've talked about or asked it to do, it kind of gets full. And basically it has to like rewrite what it knows to then implement the new requests. Something to note when that happens is that it can get the summary wrong and it can forget about how to do things, right? So in this case, it's trying to do some local player stuff. That's not what I want. So what I want is to tell it to use, I can press up on the keyboard and re-prompt the same prompt as before. I could say, check the per player snippet in the snippets folder to know how to do it. Ooh, not that one. Let's try again. Let's say the per UI per player. There we go. There it goes. So now it read the right file. Here it's reading through the code again. Okay, let's see what it did. So on coin collected, then score binding gets set to the score +1, and then it's passing this array. So that's great. That's like a Horizon thing, right? Is you can pass an array when you're changing the bindings to make it per player, right? Instead of having to do the ownership transfer. I remove the additional if since it doesn't really, I don't really need that. But here I've set the score +1. Let's go back and see what we've got. 1, great. See, now I'm getting coins. Coins collected 2, 3, game over. Great. So right now it's putting the results in that pop-up. I want to say I want the end game results to be shown on the results UI. So I know from a like, the from the demo side of things here, it's like, wow, that's a lot of stuff going on. I don't want you to know exactly, like, I don't need you to know how each of these mechanics work. What I want you to be focusing on is the fact that I have the snippets and I'm having conversation with it. And there are aspects that are coming from my knowledge of TypeScript and Horizon. But if I didn't have that, then that's kind of my stopping point, right? I could say like, "Ooh, I don't understand that. I need to go learn more about that," right? Or I can just keep fighting with it, right? I can keep wrestling with it and try to get it to prompt the right thing, like prompt and get the results of the right thing. But once you have an error, that's a moment where you could head to the forums, head to the chats and say, "Hey, here's what I got going on. I want to know more about how this works. Here's what I've read. Here's if you're searching on the Learn document or if you're looking through the snippets, it's like, here's my best understanding of how I think it works, right? Give people some context as to where you sit with your understanding of it. So let's see what we got out of asking for the results to move. So results UI has now been made static. Or at least this binding has been made static, which is interesting. I want to see what it does. So let's see what it does. I'm going to accept that. We'll start the game. So it shows up. It still shows in the pop-up from before, but you can see there it says Tellous 3. We'll give it the 10 seconds to reset me. Okay, great. So from that point on, I could keep prompting for resets and reset logic and all that stuff like, hey, hide that UI and make the coins visible again, reset my score and all that stuff. I want to make sure that in the last few moments here, that I ask for some of the things that I mentioned at the top of the slides here. So, something that I might need next, right, is like if I'm playing with like the art style, I could say like, let's say a forest wall. Let's make it a large forest wall, right? That's how I might prompt the mesh, and there has been other office hours based on prompting for models and things like that. What I like about when the models are prompting is you're able to prompt for other things too, like any of these other options. So here for SFX, I might bring it down to like a second and say coin ding. I don't know what that means, but the AI can try to figure that out and give me what it thinks it is. Let's see. I don't hear that. Let me switch my speakers. I think my battery died on my headphones. There. Oh, it's muted. Nice. Not terrible. So let's download that one or save it to our asset library. So we got coins, we got our models. For the coins, maybe I can say here in the texture prompt, I can ask for like a rusty coin. Let's try that. Okay, so that's saying cannot generate text for assets that. So that's a multi-mesh asset, so I won't be able to do it for there. But maybe we can do a floor or something. Let's put a plane. And we'll say that this is grass. Cool. While that's going, we can let's grab this one here. We'll get that one going on the textures. What I'm trying to emphasize here is that while something's going and it's taken a while, you can always be doing something else. You can either be, writing something, writing ideas, prompting for other things. um, what have you. Uh, because like you can really speed up your development in like all facets of the development process, whether it's scripting, sound design, level design, art, anything like that. You can always be looking for something else to do. Not the best grass, but we'll save it. Probably should have been like grass floor. Probably would have gotten a better result there. The rusty coin we won't be able to do. The walls generating there. And what else do we want? Let's go back to our slides and see what else oh yeah. Animation and the graphics, right? So for Meta AI, let's say we want um, let's say imagine a coin being grabbed by an avatar. All right, so that's gonna go. Oh, lovely. Look at that thing. Let's download this. All right, when you download from or when you get something from Meta AI, it's going to come in as a JPEG. So you can drag it out to your desktop, open it in your Photos app, click Edit, and save it as a PNG. You click this drop down, save it as PNG. Once that's done, hoping I didn't cut it off too soon. Oh, I did. I didn't know you could do that. Uh, Edit, save, we'll switch to PNG. We'll wait for it this time. While that's going though, let's go back to our editor. Here's our grass wall. Using AI, you can make a Windows right-click convert JPEG to PNG option. Oh, I like the way you think. Yes, that'd be fun. So let's get the image uploaded and implemented. Go add new texture. Desktop. Import that. Okay. So once that's done being processed, we will use the ID inside the custom UI. So here I'll drag in the forest wall. Make it big. I'm going to go over time for a bit, but we'll do some questions after. Here's our wall. Make it a child of that wall. Turn off its collision. I'm going to keep the collision on the wall, but I'll make it invisible. Or not quite. Let's do this. Let's make a new parent object. This will be called wall. And we'll have to set, oh, that's the plane. That's my bad. Cube. Visible. I am non-collidable. Okay. On our game, switch that over to, well, let's get Visual Studio. Wall, let's switch that over to wall. Okay. And our asset for the image, we'll copy the ID here and we'll tell the AI add this image ID or texture asset ID to the start UI. So assuming that it still has context around, yeah, image, there it goes. It can simply add that. So there's our texture ID. The one thing it's missing there, and I'm wondering if it's missing on the snippets, is when you use that size of a number, you have to put big int, the big int function here, so that it loads up correctly. All right. Let's see. It's saying expecting a comma. I think I left out one too many parentheses. Got it. All right. Let's see what we have. Wait for it to recompile. All right. And there's our image placeholder. So let's say I wanted, just like the logo of the game or something, right? So like I was able to just ask it to use that texture ID to put it in the space. I could tell it put it below it or anything like that. I could give it some layout options. Will this lesson be available to watch later? Yes, I hope so. I think so, yes. Often the office hours sessions are posted on the forums, so I believe it will be. And yeah, it's once again, the whole point of it is to show, the depth of how fast you can kind of move and do things, prompt for things. Sweet. So, in an hour, that's, we got fine mechanic we could test, right? Like if we wanted to turn into an obby, we could drop some models and stuff to practice jumping. But yeah, like that's pretty much how it goes. Well, these are like way high up here. Let's see. Let's get these aligned. It's demoing how you can move around this space too. I'm making a big assumption here that I can even reach those. So what I'm going to do is lower the gravity just a bit, just in case. Cool. 3, 2, 1. Great. Cool. So really awesome how AI can be added to your workflow. Absolutely. Um, One more thing. If you wanted to do something like make the wall go down. So let's say I want to just remind it, say, using the snippets folder, um, read about how to do Lerp animation. Then when make it to where the wall moves down when the game starts instead of going invisible. Moves down over 3 seconds. I'm going to say second. Okay. So in the snippets, there is logic on how to move things. So basically, I'm just telling it, hey, go look at how that's done, and then come back and implement it, right? This is, the idea of like an update loop and things happening over time, and then doing like vector math and things like that. That is kind of more on the advanced end of things, but you'll see it's sort of like it's processing, right? It's trying to figure it out. But ultimately, when it reads those snippets, it figures it out and it will implement it here shortly. I guess while that's going, we could probably add the sound effect we downloaded earlier. Plane dropped. Okay, let's do. So we'll prep for that next. Let's do a quick animation. Sweet. It even added a little ease out for it. Nice. Okay. So here's some stuff it added, variables it added, start position, end position, animation time, animation duration, 3 seconds while animating. So it's like a state flag there. Store the wall position for the animation, and then connect to the update event. So when the game starts, reset the animation time, set the flag to true, make it collidable, visible, position at the start position. On update, it's going to do some logic for moving it. Here we can see that vec3 lerp is happening. Just checking for how long it's taking, and then let me read what you said here. So is it better to do small actions like you just did to make the wall go down and get results, or do you find that it works just as well if you ask it to make the wall go down at the end? Game reset. I'll go back. So it can vary, right? And so like it kind of is going to be, if you're feeling like you don't mind sort of debugging and reading through a lot of output, then feel free to request for like larger sets of things, right? It's going to break it down and figure out how it wants to approach implementing it as like the agent will do that, right? But if you feel more comfortable, like my brain processes better when I see little results, like little things at a time, then, break it down into smaller requests. In this case, yeah, that was kind of a bigger request. So let's see what happens when we start the game. Zoop. Perfect. So that did exactly what we wanted. And if it didn't, I would just have a longer conversation with it saying, hey, do this and that and the other. One thing I do want to show you before we go into Q&A here is there is this newer feature that you can add a folder called .github specifically. So in .github, you can add a new file called copilot instructions.md. Copilot instructions.md. Great. What this is basically it's a prompt that always runs alongside anything you ask. So I could say something like always make sure you reference the snippets folder before implementing anything. If I wanted to get really advanced, right? Like if I was building something really serious, I might say like anytime you add a new feature, make sure it exists in the we could say like the requirements, let's say in a requirements document or something like that, right? Or like maybe it's like keep a running list of all of the functions and classes you create. So it can help you with like sort of building out like game development documentation, things like that, right? So let's say like I wanted it to do the audio piece here. So when I touch the coin, move the sound effect, or here, let's say add a sound effect prop definition to game. When I touch the coin, move the sound effect to that coin and play the sound. Cool. So let's see what it does. You see, it picked up the instructions. Oh, well, I think it's because I had it open, but either way, if I didn't have it open and I was in the game section here, it's still going to read that file. Hopefully we'll see it output what I'm looking for, which is basically it'll create a new document for the requirements document and the one for the classes and the functions. So there, yeah, you see that? So it created sound effect requirement. And now I can have this extra documentation, right? If I'm in VS Code or Visual Studio Code, I can press this little magnifying glass and see the formatted version when I'm on these .md files. So when applier touches coin, and this is sometimes it's just a way to sanity check what's happened so far, what it's created so far. And you can always format this however you want. Just include that in your Copilot instructions document. But yeah, let's keep it going. See if it can get this coin sound effect in here. There's a coin being added. Cool. And then here it touches and sets it to the position and then plays. So great. Cool. Thanks for the requirements doc. I didn't see this one. Or the one for the the functions list or whatever I was asking for there. But no worries. I could always ask it for that if I really, really want it to spit it out. So let's wire up the sound. It's called audiograph. Okay. And let's see if we have sounds. There it goes. I can hear it. I don't know if you hear it, but I totally hear it. And yeah, that's all I got for you for today. We'll keep these sessions going, learn some more about AI and all things meta worlds. I'll see you all next time.